Stats are in, and the average time somebody lives in a house has changed quite significantly according to a Redfin market survey. If you are curious about what changes are happening in that regard and the ones in our local market, I hope you will stay tuned and stick around to hear the answers. I'm Erica Carlson. I'm with a boutique brokerage called Bricks Real Estate. I help people buy and sell residential real estate in the Twin Cities surrounding areas. I make these educational videos about our real estate market. And if you learn anything new, I'd love for you to join our growing community, whether you find this on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. If you want to make a move, just click on that link I'm supplying in the paragraph and then choose the first option. Of course, pick a time that works best for you for us to connect. So about 2 decades ago, the average time to live in a house was about 6.5 years. And now homeowners are staying in their property twice as long as they did in 2005. Again, this is according to a Redfin market survey they did recently. The typical homeowner was living in the property 11.9 years. So that's a pretty significant change. The peak was in 2020 at about 13.4 years. There are several reasons why homeowners have stayed in their properties longer. First, and really the big one I'm going to focus on today, is that 54% of the boomer generation population has no mortgage, or if they do, the median of owning that house is about $600 a month. I thought I'd briefly share with you guys the shortest and longest tenure. I thought this was kind of interesting. So the longest tenure seems to be mostly in the California area, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and let me check, San Jose. And then Cleveland, Ohio was a little bit of an outlier since those 3 areas were California, and then Memphis, Tennessee. So it's a little bit mismatched around the country for that information. That was at 16, 17, and 18 years. On the flip side, places where people are living about 7 or 8 years, which again is the old statistic, is Raleigh, North Carolina, and Charlotte, North Carolina, Nashville, Tennessee, Las Vegas, Nevada, of course, and Louisville, Kentucky. So 7, 8 years there. So that's where they're coming up. So, it's just kind of interesting to know different parts of the country have different types of tenure. So like I said before, a lot of this has to do with one of our largest generations of people are just not moving. And the people that like to predict things and they just kind of believe that things are going to stay about the same, maybe just stay pretty flat for the foreseeable future, maybe a slight increase, of course. With last year being one of the all-time, I think it was the 15-year low for house sales, this does explain some of this. So I'm going to flip and share my screen now with you so you can see the data and what has been changing. Hopefully you can see we're on February 28th, and I decided just to use this because it's a lot simpler. It's maybe not as graphically as pretty as my past videos, but I think it makes the point a little bit better. So we have 461 properties in Wright County for sale. Only 411 of those don't have contingencies. As we back up, you can see I'm going back in time here, okay? We're still in the 400s, and it takes until around December 20th for us to have a number higher than today's number. So it has been quite a bit of time since we've seen houses at that 500 level. And you can just tell, last week 436 and this week 461. We've had a nice healthy jump in inventory. And I think if you're out there shopping, you might start to notice and feel that there is some more choices coming. Of course, this is just Wright County. Jumping over to pendings, what's important to notice here again is now we're in the 200s. So, when we look back, we're in the hundreds here, right? So we're getting more houses under contract, and the same with closed data at 124. This is much higher than we've seen since, again, that December 20th time. So that lines up with that. So, it's really predictable what we've seen. There's nothing jumping out at me that's like unusual by any means. This is very much like if I showed you a different graph, it would look much more like 2019. So if you were like wondering, okay, when is the last time the real estate market's been like this? Just generally speaking, it's about 2019. And Most of us are saying is just back to normal. That's where we're at. Like, you might not like it, but this is, this is just the way it kind of is on average. In terms of showings per week, it's pretty flat from the last couple of weeks. 3.2 showings per week per listing. This is in the 250 to 500K range, Wright County only. These are just averages. If I was going to list my house tomorrow, I wouldn't necessarily expect only 3 showings, but that's the average. We compare that to Hennepin County, where they're getting 6 showings per week per listing. So they're moving significantly faster. If I'm showing somebody houses in that Coon Rapids area, Brooklyn Park, Plymouth, that West Metro, which is what I specialize in, and they're shopping on that corridor, it is moving so much faster. Plus, that's where the majority of inventory is when you're in that 250 to 350 range. You can't fight that. I mean, people all the time call me and want to shop for that price in other areas, and it just doesn't always exist. And that can be a hard pill to swallow, especially, you're a first time home buyer and you have a very particular part of town you want to live in. It just might not exist, or it might only exist as a townhouse or a condo. And if that's a deal breaker, then it is important to get your head around that sooner than later, and not fantasize about things that don't exist or rarely exist. We lovingly call those unicorns. You're holding out for a unicorn, but what if, so is everybody else. So be careful with that type of thinking when you're house shopping. In terms of average days on market, it's was about 40 last week. It's gone down to 37. That in itself isn't significant, but just kind of watching where the numbers are trending, right? Because we were in the 40s and 50s back here. And as time has moved on, other than that weird anomaly of a week where we had 81 days, still can't really explain that. If you're a real estate agent watching this and wondering, where am I getting this data? I look at pending sales, and I look at very current pending sales. I do not look at what MAR and SPAR provide for us agents, because they are 1 to 2 months behind. And the median is 11. And I think this is what stands out to me this week. Every number I shared with you, I think all of them, other than the showings per week per listing in Wright County, have gone up. Everything is trending upwards. It is green outside. Yes, we got a little snow yesterday. Probably wasn't I didn't show houses last night, but I'm sure it wasn't a great evening to be out looking at houses. But depending on snow, right, it doesn't, it doesn't even matter. I mean, if there's a big snowstorm, it will impact things. But for the most part, this is just going to get hotter and hotter for buyers with competition. For sellers, this means it's the right time to sell. If you have any questions about the real estate market, if you're ready to get started, again, click that link and then pick the first one to set up a time to talk. I hope you have a great week. Thank you for joining me.